There is a particular kind of silence that follows people into adulthood, not the peaceful kind. The other one, the one that forms in the spaces where comfort should have lived. You see it in the way someone hesitates before admitting they're tired, in the way their shoulders lift, almost imperceptibly, as if bracing for a storm no one else can see, in the way they've learned to breathe quietly, to need quietly, to hurt quietly. Growing up without comfort doesn't leave scars, it leaves patterns, invisible habits carried like a second spine. A weight that feels familiar, so familiar that they mistake it for their own shape. And yet, beneath that practiced calm, something fragile still trembles, hoping someone might finally notice. It begins early. A child learns the weather of their home long before they learn the seasons of the world. Some grow up tiptoeing around fragile adults. Some learn that their tears make no difference. Some discover that softness is a language no one around them speaks, so they adapt. They swallow emotions like they're learning to breathe underwater. They grow skilled at minimizing themselves. They become fluent in pretending they don't need anything at all. And years later, surrounded by people who call them strong. They don't know how to explain that much of their strength was born from absence, not abundance. Recognition comes slowly. A subtle awareness that something feels heavy inside, not painful, just heavier than it should be. Comfort is a form of early wiring. When a child is soothed, held, listened to, their nervous system learns safety. Their emotions learn shape. The world feels predictable, survivable, responsive. But when comfort is inconsistent or absent, something else forms. A quiet vigilance, a belief that emotions are storms they must weather alone. A deep, unspoken truth, no one is coming. And so the child becomes their own shelter, their own comfort, their own everything. Not because they choose to, but because no one taught them another way to exist. This becomes the blueprint for adulthood. Invisible, automatic, sometimes mistaken for independence. But it's not independence. It's survival dressed as self-sufficiency. Psychology calls this emotional neglect, though many who live through it never call it anything at all. Research shows that children who grow up without consistent comfort often develop hyper-independence as a protective adaptation, difficulties expressing vulnerability, numbed or delayed emotional awareness, heightened stress responses, even to small triggers, a tendency to minimize their own needs. The brain learned that closeness is unpredictable. It learns to mute signals of need because signaling brought nothing. Over time, the ability to self-soothe becomes maladaptively strong. They excel at calming themselves down, but struggle to open up, receive support, or feel deserving of care. Even when they long for warmth, their nervous system responds as though warmth is dangerous. Comfort becomes a foreign language they never had the chance to learn. Inside, there is a quiet tug-of-war. Part of them longs to be held. Another part flinches at the thought. They crave connection, but feel exposed when someone gets too close. They want to rest, but don't know how to stop bracing. They appreciate kindness, but question why it's being offered. And when someone finally says, "It's okay, you can talk to me," they freeze because the words stick to a childhood where opening up never led anywhere. There is a resistance that feels irrational, even to them. A trembling hesitation around receiving the very thing they were deprived of. The conflict isn't loud, it's quiet, internal, a kind of emotional gravity that pulls them back into themselves. People around them might say, "You're so composed," never realizing how much of that composure is muscle memory from childhood. The turning point isn't dramatic. There is no grand revelation, no sudden release. It happens gently, in small moments that pass almost unnoticed. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" And instead of the automatic, "I'm fine," a softer truth slips out. "I think I'm tired." Someone offers a hug, and instead of stepping back, they stay still long enough to feel the warmth. Someone listens without rushing to fix things, and the silence between words feels strangely safe. Slowly, they notice something. The body remembers the lack of comfort, but it can also learn the presence of it. The realization is simple but profound. They were never difficult. They were never dramatic. They were never too much. They were children who learned to cope with too little. And although the past cannot be rewritten, the nervous system can be rewired, one small moment of safety at a time. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the parts of themselves that never had the chance to exist. It begins with slow permission. Permission to name what they feel. Permission to acknowledge needs without shame. Permission to receive comfort without believing it's conditional. They learn that comfort isn't weakness. It's regulation. It's connection. It's the nervous system finally exhaling. They begin recognizing the subtle cues in their body. The tightening chest, the held breath, the urge to say, "It doesn't matter," when it does. And with time, they discover that comfort is not a gift others grant them. It is an environment they are allowed to inhabit. One they can choose, one they can seek, one they can create. Comfort becomes less frightening, less foreign, less rare. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because they finally understand something that was never taught to them. Comfort is not earned. It is needed. It is human. It is theirs. Growing up without comfort leaves a hidden weight, but it also creates a quiet kind of strength. One built not from perfection, but from endurance. And yet, a life lived in survival is not the only life available. Even those who learned to carry everything alone can learn, slowly, gently, to set things down. The past shaped them, but does not imprison them. A childhood without comfort explains the heaviness, but does not define the future. Somewhere ahead, there are softer moments waiting. Moments where the body unlearns its vigilance, where the heart unclenches, where the silence finally becomes peaceful. Not because everything is fixed, but because comfort, once distant, has become something they can finally let in.